Hi, in this video we'll be installing Formbird into a VirtualBox virtual machine, Ubuntu 18.04 and MongoDB as its base database. Hi, my name's Mark Hosking. I'm CEO and founder of Formbird. Formbird is the fastest way for anyone to get development done, software development, whether the application's for internal use, SaaS or other. Formbird makes it possible. Head on over to formbird.com for more information. Okay, so in this installation, we're going to start with a base installed Ubuntu 18.04. So to start with this, I've started VirtualBox. The first step is to clone that machine. In this case, I'm going to call it Formbird as the virtual machine name. Let's clone the full clone. As I said, in this video, I'm going to run through the entire process without any skipping, just so you can understand and see what it takes to install Formbird. It's incredibly simple. The website will guide you through it, and we expect that within 45 minutes or less, you'll actually have a fully operating Formbird server. I'll now start that server, that Ubuntu 18.04 server. While that starts, we can head on over to our website. So head on over to formbird.com. Under formbird.com, we have our docs and documentation. There's installation, and you'll find the install scripts for this version that I'm doing now. We'll switch back to the server. I will now log into that server. To make things easy, I'm actually just confirming the IP address, which on this server is 192.168.8.146. I'm going to actually log into this using an SSH terminal. You can do that. You can log into an SSH terminal using PuTTY if you're in Windows. Download PuTTY, or today Windows 10 actually supplies a SSH terminal session that you can use. So let me log into that. So SSH Ubuntu, which is a default user I've created in this machine, at 192.168.8. Let me just confirm, 156.156. Oops, 192 would help, 192.168. Let's get that done. Right, now we're logging in. Password. Now they're into that virtual machine. Let's now start running the scripts from the website. They're all laid out, very simple to do. It assumes that this user has sudo access. You can ensure that user does have sudo access by simply typing sudo, say su, which will switch over to the root user, and re-enter the password for that user. It should now be operating under root, but the base install expects you to be installing under the actual user. So let me head back. Okay, the first step is to ensure that the server is totally up to date. So we will simply cut and paste and perform a sudo apt update. Next, we actually perform an upgrade of any packages in this environment that needs upgrading. As it's a fairly fresh install, there are no packages that require upgrading whatsoever. Now we'll move on to the dependencies, or installing the dependencies of Formbird. This includes installing Mongo, Elasticsearch, Redis, Perl, Java. It's assumed that your base machine that you've installed has nothing installed whatsoever. So it's the scripts assumes that this virtual machine, this Ubuntu virtual machine, has nothing installed. So I simply paste that in. It'll then download and run that shell script. There is 11 steps in this install. They're all in fact listed on the website underneath. This is the actual script that is now being run. You can see each of the components being installed. If you have an environment you wish to install Formbird into directly, and it's a Debian or Ubuntu-based Debian-based environment, then you can simply pick and choose the elements that you require to have installed. You can also download that script by simply doing a wget from our website. I'm going to let this script run in real time. This will hopefully help you if you find you have any problems with your install, and you can just go back to it and double check that you see the same results that I'm presenting here. Feel free to jump forward. It'll take another couple of minutes, but it's worth us presenting the actual install in real time so that you can also be sure that your install has been successful. At the end of this install, you will have a base operating machine with all the requirements to run a full Formbird server. Please note that this install is not building a production-ready environment that is to be exposed to the cloud or the internet natively. It is expected that this will be run on a local machine, whether it be a local notebook or internally on an internal network. It is the same software that we run on our hosted environments, although security elements have all been applied, locking the environment right down. The base install of the database that will be installed at the end of this process also contains no keys or no lockdown. So it really is assumed that the environment that you are installing now will be used for development and exploring or simply for internal use. So you can run this up and run it successfully internally on an internal network. It just simply needs to have some form of protection from the internet, or at least some minimum lockdown of it. You can head on over to our website to learn more about how you secure a Formbird environment, but like any environment, there are degrees of security that you can apply. In our default install here, that is intended for just local use, we leave it relatively open. This makes it simpler for you to access and explore the entire platform without the burden of having a lockdown environment. Formbird does have very powerful capabilities in terms of security and in terms of securing and sharing of data between many groups of people. So once you have developed your application, you can very much secure both the environment and your data to ensure that only those with the appropriate access can see and utilize and leverage the data that you have in your system or your application. Once installed, I will demonstrate and we'll start up that application. We'll also do a few little tweaks to provide access to Mongo particularly and Elasticsearch on that external environment. While this is doing some of this base install, another quick comment that you may need to address when you're installing is access to your VirtualBox machine. This can be done through the network tab. Typically you'll require a bridged environment if you want to access the actual software externally in terms of from your network. The default install for VirtualBox appears to be a NATed environment, which means that the server can talk out, but you cannot access the software inbound. So a bridged adapter is the way to go, and that will provide an IP address that is sitting on whatever network you're on. So just be aware that if you are sitting on a public network in any form and you're running that server, it will be accessible or potentially accessible by other users on that network. Therefore, again, just securing it is highly advisable at a minimum, not exposing the Mongo and the Elasticsearch ports on that machine. But as I said, in this environment, it's assumed that this will be a internal use development environment. So as this is progressing, we're now up to installing Python. As I said, we'll actually follow it all the way through in real time, which will give you a sense of what it takes to install an entire server. It's a very simple process, just requires these dependencies to be installed. The install time will vary naturally based on your internet access and the speed and performance of your underlying machine. You will have noticed that VirtualBox is available on most platforms, whether it be Windows, Mac OS X, Linux, or Solaris. It is a good way to build a complex server, or a server that has many dependencies within any environment. The default configuration for this machine is I've set it to 2 processors and 2 gig of RAM. Ideally, you would want to step that up to potentially 4 gig of RAM, but Formbird will happily operate within that amount of memory and processors. So now we're slowly up to step 9 of 11. Okay, we're now configuring a number of config files. The environment is set up with a reverse proxy of Nginx, as well as the Formbird application itself, and then all of its dependencies. And we'll step through those final steps of configuring and starting up Formbird. Once this is complete, we'll confirm that those dependencies or the key dependencies have been installed successfully. You can use that particularly if you're installing in an environment that you're tailoring to your own specific needs. They're not complex, and you can certainly search the internet for specific help around Mongo and Elasticsearch, etc. Okay. We've completed that. So let's just clear the screen. Now what we'll do is we'll just confirm that Mongo has been successfully installed. By simply typing Mongo, this will run the Mongo shell. And if successful, you'll see you've logged into that Mongo shell. You'll have RS0 and primary. We can exit that. Simple command of curl localhost 9200 will confirm Elasticsearch has been installed. At this point, we're pretty confident that the install has been totally successful. We can certainly investigate later if there are any further issues. So from this point on, we'll then commence the install of Formbird itself. And Formbird is a node-based application, and we'll use npm and yarn to install the actual application. Okay, so now we commence the install of Formbird. So as under that user, the Ubuntu user, I'm going to scroll down and select the next step. So firstly, we install under that user. Must be under that user, not under root. We'll install yarn and PM2. So I'll commence the configuration of those 2 applications. PM2 is a very powerful process management application that will manage your node-based applications. Okay, we've commenced that. Now we'll actually install Formbird itself. This will fetch from npm all of the required Formbird files and its dependencies. You'll notice different messages and warning messages. These are simply messages of dependent packages, and that will change over time depending on what state those dependent packages are at. We at Formbird are continuously updating the application to utilize the latest, ensure that there are no security warnings, and that those dependent packages are suitable. But that will vary. The messages that you will see will vary quite varied depending on the state of play at that point in time. So as long as they remain a warning, don't be overly concerned. It's a very normal process for a complex node application like Formbird, or a large application like Formbird. Some 35,000 or 33,000 dependent files are being installed, and building the packages that are required. After concluding this, we'll run the Formbird installer. As it notes here, Formbird install, but it's also documented here in our list. What we'll do is we'll actually install it under a subdirectory called app, and then the Formbird install will be run. So simply again, cut and paste that script in, and the installer will ask a number of questions. At this point in time, simply accept all the defaults and let it let the application install. Now building the known modules with Yarn. Installing and building, this will take a few seconds, 30-40 seconds. Once complete, we'll then have the base install. What we then need to do is install a starter database. Again, that is provided with this install. The install script has downloaded a base database, which is required to fire up the application. That should be finished in a few seconds. Once completed, we will then start the server. We'll log in. We'll review the install. We can then move on to configuring the environment so that on a reboot, the Formbird server will simply restart. That's utilizing the PM2 capabilities. And it's also fully documented on this install script. Okay, so it's reporting that we've successfully installed. Now we'll create the starter database, which, like I said, has been already provided in that install. So we load a small seed database of only 100 odd documents. At this point, we've completed the base install, and we should be able to now run up the server itself. So we'll start the server, and you can see now it's reported a successful start, or at least an attempted start. We can confirm that that started successfully by typing or putting in PM2 logs under that user, and if a successful start has occurred, it'll report that it started and at this point in time configured for port 3000. The reverse proxy will take the HTTPS request and redirect it to port 3000. At this point, I can now attempt to log in. So just confirming my IP address with typing ifconfig. I can take that IP address, which if it's an external bridged IP address, I'll have access to it from my local notebook. It requires HTTPS and the IP address. Your browsers will perform a warning. That's simply because we're using HTTPS and the certificate is not matching the address certificate. We do actually provide a certificate that is there for private.formbird.com. We'll demonstrate that at a later stage on how you can configure that internally so that the browser doesn't complain about the connection. But at this point in time, we'll simply move past that. It is, in fact, a secure connection. It's just warning that if someone has spoofed that address, it's not happy that the certificates don't match that address. But we can now log in. So we use our default database login here, which is admin.formbird.com and capital FORMBIRD123 exclamation mark. And that should now get us in. That is your starting point. We can now go ahead and build our very first Formbird form. We start here. We have this link to our template editor. If we select Start Building a Form, this will take us into the template editor. You can actually go across to our website. In fact, on the website under Try, there's a little bit of details. There's also further details on how to build and construct apps underneath all the documentation under Docs. So just for a simple example, we'll take that what we call base template or a template and build our very first form. This is a contact form. It contains a name, an address, phone numbers. In fact, lets us what's called upload images and files, take photos. It's a complete working contact form. I'll hit save. I've now created a basic form on my new server. I can now, let's say, create actually store some data. Put against a phone number. That's now a fully functional form. You can now search for that record in the system. You'll also note that as you'll see, you could take that IP address, and if you've got your mobile phone connected to the local network, you could try it out on your mobile phone to demonstrate that you've not only installed a version of Formbird, you actually have a mobile version that is fully capable of going operating mobile on your tablet or phone. You can also attach images and take photos from your camera. So let's say we go to let's take a look and see if there's a small image that I can upload. Let's say just our logo. You can see there I've attached an image. So there we have a fully working Formbird server, fully configured. Let's now go back and finish it off with ensuring that it auto restarts on reboot. At this stage it would not auto restart. So going down into the documentation, we now have a look at the Formbird auto restart on reboot. Again, I'm still logged into the environment. So I would take these two commands, simple as before. I would stop the application. Now we need to, you'll notice that the startup command from PM2 has given me in fact what I need to do. It does require sudo access, so it assumes we're operating still under the same user. We'll cut and paste that. PM2 is now ready to accept the startup, so we can actually now start up that app and save the configuration. So simply cutting and pasting that, we'll now have a saved environment. It should now work. If I now sudo reboot, we now should see, we should have the server reboot. So there's the server rebooting. And if everything has been successful after rebooting, and a few seconds, up to 30 seconds after rebooting, we should have a fully operating environment. It does take a few seconds for both MongoDB to fully start, Elasticsearch, and then the Formbird server itself. The speed at which will depend on, as I said, the speed of your underlying computing power. If I now, you'll see that the setter was offline, the little red indicator indicates it was actually offline, or not available. If I now refresh, I should be fully operational. So that's now it's a fully operating environment which sustains a server reboot. I can also log back into that server as a reboot logged me out, and I can again run PM2 logs to confirm that we have the server operating. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that your Formbird installation is as smooth as this. You can go back and confirm that everything works through ensuring that each of those elements are up and going. But good luck, have fun. Formbird's very powerful and easy to use, and we hope that you enjoy it as much as we do. Thank you.